Let's be clear. Winning the competition should unite all of us. We face serious challenges across the world. But in the past 2 years, democracies have become stronger, not weaker. Autocracy has grown weaker, not stronger. Name me a world leader who changed places with Xi Jinping. Name me one. Name me one. America's rallying the world to meet those challenges, from climate to global health, to food insecurity, to terrorism, to territorial aggression. Allies are stepping up, spending more, and doing more.
This is my first video update coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus on this Wednesday morning. Let's talk about the State of the Union, Biden's big speech, his second State of the Union address. And boy, was it an S show. Man, oh man. Biden actually got heckled at one point during his speech when he was talking about Social Security and Medicare. A lot of Republicans actually heckled him and called him a liar. Right there during the State of the Union in Congress. A part of Congress actually called the President of the United States a liar. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. So the opening video segment, that was Biden, very, very upset with Xi Jinping. Very, very upset. Even though in his speech he said he's not looking for confrontation with China, but boy, is he upset. Name me one leader that wants to be Xi Jinping. You, Biden, you want to be Xi Jinping. You can tell he's very upset. He really is. He's very jealous. That's what that was. What you saw yesterday, that little fit, which Biden does all the time. He does these little, he has these little moments where, you know, he speaks very, very low and he seems very calm, and then something triggers him. I don't know what it is. I haven't figured out what's the trigger, but something triggers him and he loses it. And yesterday it was Xi Jinping for some reason. The fact that the world outside of the collective West is actually getting along with the Chinese leader. And that really upsets Biden, that Xi Jinping appears to be more popular than Joe Bidenopoulos, Greece's favorite son. And he's upset. Like a high school. It's like a high school. Biden thought he was the most popular person in high school, the most popular kid. But then he finds out that, hey, wait, Xi Jinping is more popular than me. How did that happen? I'm more popular, me. I'm the coolest guy, not him. No one wants to be like him. Everyone wants to be like me, He's he's like a 10-year-old trapped in an 80-year-old's body. Oh man. That was bizarre. That was really bizarre. Let's see. Bono was at the State of the Union, and Paul Pelosi. But you know, when you have Bono at an event, then you're in real big trouble. So yeah, that was interesting. That was an interesting moment where Congress is clapping for the U2 lead singer. What he's doing there, I don't know. Oh, man. So, let's see. He talked about Russia. He did talk about Russia. Actually, he didn't even mention Russia by name that often. I don't even think he mentioned Russia once, like Russia. I think the whole speech he was just talking about Putin. Putin this, Putin that. Putin's to blame for inflation. Putin's to blame for gas prices. Putin. And he called the invasion in Ukraine what did he say? The test of the century. That's what he called it. The test of the century, according to Biden.
I spoke from this chamber 1 year ago, just days after Vladimir Putin unleashed his brutal attack against Ukraine. A murderous assault, evoking images of death and destruction Europe suffered in World War II. Putin's invasion has been a test for the ages, a test for America, a test for the world. Would we stand for the most basic of principles? Will we stand for sovereignty? We stand for the right of people to live free of tyranny? Will we stand for the defense of democracy? For such defense matters to us because it keeps peace and prevents open season on would-be aggressors and threatens our prosperity. 1 year later, we know the answer. Yes, we would, and we did. We did. And together, we did what America always does at our best. We led. We united NATO. We built a global coalition. We stood against Putin's aggression. We stood with the Ukrainian people. Tonight, we're once again joined by Ukrainian's ambassador to the United States. She represents not just her nation, but the courage of her people. Our ambassador is here, we're united in our support of your country. Will you stand so we can all take a look at you? Thank you. Because we're going to stand with you as long as it takes.
He failed to mention what's really going on in Donbass and BAKHMUT. He failed to talk about how the sanctions have failed, how they've been a complete big dud. He didn't mention any of that. He just talked about how the United States is supporting the freedom of the Zelensky regime, the freedom of the Zelensky regime, as 16-year-olds are now being registered in the military. 16-year-olds. Unbelievable. Shame, shame, shame. But he didn't mention that during his State of the Union. Of course not. He forgot that part of the freedom of the Zelensky regime. And so, let's walk this way. And so he said, as he was finishing up his segment about Ukraine, he said the line that I knew he was going to say, which was, we will support Ukraine for as long as it takes. That is the standard line that they have to insert in all the scripts. They have some standard lines now, which, they just repeat over and over again. It's like a type of hypnosis or something. As long as it takes, as long as it takes. So they say that all the time. As long as it takes, which really means that when things really start to go bad, as they are going bad, they're going to cut and run. That's what it means. When they say as long as it takes, if I was Zelensky, I would be very, very nervous. I would be like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. The minute they start making promises like that. Human wave, that's a new one that they're going to start throwing out there. That's how they're going to explain everything that's happening in BAKHMUT. They're going to say it's a Russian victory, but the way that the Russians did it is because they used human wave tactics. You already see the New York Times throwing that out there. They put 2 articles up the other day, and those articles are kind of preparing everybody for the fall of BAKHMUT and of Donbass. And the one article is titled, Outnumbered and Worn Out Ukrainians in the East Brace for Russian Assault. And the other article from the New York Times is Russia and Ukraine have incentives to negotiate. The U.S. has other plans. And both of these articles, they talk about how the Russians are absolutely making progress. However slow it is, they're making progress in BAKHMUT. And they've got the Ukraine military beat. They have them outnumbered in manpower, artillery, and everything. And the way that the Russians are winning in the Donbass is that they're just throwing human wave after human wave. Both of these articles, or at least one of these articles, talks about this 200,000 casualty number that the New York Times threw out there last week. And they're just preparing everybody for the fall of BAKHMUT, but they can't You know, the problem with the collective West is that they just can't believe, they can't bring themselves to accept the fact that Russia beat them. And so they're finding excuses. And now the excuse is human wave tactics. That's how they did it. You know, we're better than them. We're smarter. We're better. We're more capable. Everything. Our military stronger. Ukraine's military stronger. All of these things. But the Russians did it by using human wave tactics. And it's actually a very clever script that they thought up, because it explains away the fact that the Russian military outplayed them in BAKHMUT and in the Donbass. And it also makes Russia look barbaric at the same time. So it serves two really good purposes for the collective West, this human wave narrative. So that's what they're going with. But the New York Times is now preparing everybody for the fall of BAKHMUT. They're preparing everybody for it, for the Russian victory there. And the way they're going to cope with it is they're just going to say it was human waves. That's how they won. You know, it's like playing a sport, and you know that the other team just outplayed you. They were just better, but, you know, it was the ref's fault. And, you know, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, and my teammates were just not playing well, and the coach, you know, he made some bad calls and blah, blah, blah. You know, this is the excuse so that you can cope with the loss. That's what's happening there. Let's see, is there anything else from the State of the Union? I'm trying to think, any other interesting parts. To be quite honest, it was a kind of boring speech. I mean, it had its moments, but all in all, it was nothing really important was said. It was just Biden accepting, taking a victory lap on good news and blaming other people for the bad news. That was it. That was the entire State of the Union right there. And of course, Biden ended the speech by saying, you know, the State of the Union is strong. I don't know how he comes up with that one, but it's strong according to Biden, according to the President of the United States. So that's the State of the Union. We have news that Zelensky is going to be traveling to the UK today, I think. Sky News is reporting this. I can't confirm it. It's kind of breaking news, but Zelensky is going to be in the UK. And then on Thursday, he is going to make his way to, I believe, Brussels for the EU summit of all the EU leaders. So the fact that he's going to the UK, that's either bad news for Zelensky, or it's bad news for the Ukraine military, because the UK, they've been the ones, Boris Johnson, the UK government, the deep state there, led by Boris Johnson, they have been the ones that have been managing Zelensky. They've been handling Zelensky all this time. And so the excuse is that Zelensky is going to the UK to check up on the Ukraine military that is being trained in Britain. But we all know that Zelensky is going there because things are really, really bad. Things are very bad. And he is either going to be told to continue to escalate, something like that. Don't lose your nerve, Zelensky. We'll support you. Boris Johnson will be like, we'll support you for as long as it takes. So just sit tight and just keep on doing as you're told. Or perhaps he's going to be off-ramped somehow, some way. I don't know, but this is a big deal. It is a very big deal that he's, if this is true, according to Sky News, that he's going to travel to the UK. You notice that slowly, Zelensky is starting to travel outside of Kiev. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? Slowly, they're starting to take Zelensky out of the equation, it seems. Step by step. He went to the U.S., now he's going to go to the U.K., then he's going to go to Brussels for the EU meeting. I think they're exiting him very, very gradually. It's not going to happen tomorrow or next week or maybe not even in a month, but they're going to exit him slowly. That's what it looks like to me. So that's the big news there. And what else is there to talk about? We had the defense minister of Germany. He made a visit to Kiev the other day, and he met with the outgoing, soon-to-be-fired defense minister of Ukraine, Reznikov, and he brought Reznikov a toy tank, like a Hot Wheels, like a Hot Wheels toy tank, a toy Leopard, I think. What does that tell you when the defense minister of Germany travels to Kiev to pay homage to the Zelensky regime, and he brings a toy tank to the soon-to-be-fired defense minister of Ukraine? Pistorius, that's the German defense minister's name, he actually said that the world would be a better place without Putin. The world, that's a quote, the world would be a better place, would be better without Putin. They still got regime change on their mind. I think they got to the German defense minister very quick. When he first got into the job, he seemed logical and moderate. His first statements were pretty low key when he first got appointed defense minister. And now it looks like he's going full war hawk. He also said that they should have 187 Leopards ready to go by spring, and he's got some Leopard 2s on the way as well. And he said that Germany's goal is to get 3 battalions ready by middle of 2024. 3 battalions by the middle of 2024. That was his statement, his goals that he presented to the Zelensky regime. So that's what Germany is up to. Lavrov, he was in Mali, and he accepted an award from the government in Mali. And then he gave a very interesting speech to address many of Joseph Borrell's comments. Lavrov became commander of the National Order of Mali. The award was presented to him by the foreign minister of the African Republic. Boy, is Macron going to be very, very upset. You know it. Macron was meeting with Meloni, the Italian prime minister, the other day, and they promised that they're going to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. That's what they said, for as long as it takes. They're like robots, you know? Hit the button for as long as it takes, for as long as it takes, for as long as it takes. Human waves, human waves, human waves. So Macron is going to be very upset with Russia because many countries in Africa, they actually have a choice now. And they're kicking the French out, and they're inviting, and that's the key, they're inviting the Russians and the Chinese in. And Biden's upset because these countries are inviting the Chinese and the Russians. That's why he's lashing out at Xi Jinping. That's why he blew a gasket yesterday during the State of the Union, and that is why France is and Macron is is so hawkish now with regards to Russia, because France is being kicked out because they don't want France in, say, Mali or Burkina Faso, and they're actually inviting the Russians. And Lavrov, he addressed many of Borrell's statements in connection to Africa, because Borrell has been running his mouth recently in connection to Russia, China, and the global South. Something along the lines of the global South will always choose us inside of the garden, and they're kind of being forced to go with Russia and China. And Lavrov addressed that. Borrell, by the way, also said in a statement the other day that the banning of Russian media was all about promoting free speech. I'll get you that quote in a bit, but let me cross the streets and let me read you what Lavrov said in connection to Borrell, because it's a good one. Lavrov is on fire these days. This is what he said, answering Jungle Joseph. He said, "This is said by a man," referring to Borrell, "this is said by a man who cannot hide the racist essence of his vision of the world. Not so long ago, he publicly, without hesitation, said that Europe is a flowering garden and he is a gardener, and the jungle surrounds Europe, from which a threat to a flowering garden arises. So the garden should be more careful with the jungle. There is nothing to add here about who and how relates to the needs and interests of African countries. We have nothing to hide or be ashamed of. We stood at the origins of the liberation of Africa from the colonial yoke. The Soviet Union was one of the main initiators of the adoption of the Declaration on Granting Independence to colonial countries and peoples in 1960. And it was not an imitation, as Boris Johnson recently called the Minsk agreements, but a real historical act that sealed the fall of colonial rule." Wow. Oh boy. You know they're jealous of Lavrov. You know they are jealous of Lavrov because he's that good at what he does. You know that Blinken and Borrell, they're absolutely jealous of the skills that Lavrov has. So here's the statement that Borrell made the other day. Jungle Joseph said, by banning Russian channels, we are not banning freedom of speech. On the contrary, we are protecting it.
We were able to impose restrictive measures on the Kremlin propaganda machinery and effectively ban them from operating within the European Union. And on doing that, we are not attacking the freedom of expression. We are just protecting the freedom of expression.
Can you get any more 1984, Jungle Joseph? By banning media channels, we're protecting free speech. By banning travel to Russia, we're protecting travel. We're promoting travel. They're going to do the same thing with central digital bank currencies, you know. Let me pull up a tweet here. This is coming from the UK. Because all of these lines, all of these narratives that they spin out for Russia, they're just going to spin it out for all of us as well. They're just going to change the names and change up the language a little bit, but they're going to come out with the same type of narratives to curb our rights and to take our freedoms and eventually our money. And let me find this tweet here in connection with the UK. The Bank of England proposes £10,000 to £20,000 holding limit per person for its digital pound, the CBDC. a holding limit. So the central bank digital currency is going to have time limits, and it's going to have a holding limit. I imagine what this is saying, and correct me in the comments down below if I'm wrong, but I imagine that when they say a holding limit of 10 to 20,000 pounds, it effectively means that you can't hold more than 10 to 20,000 pounds. Spend it, or lose it, or have it deleted, you know? Delete. I imagine that's what this means. This is some dangerous stuff. Some really dangerous stuff. Should we do a clown world? The world is reacting, though. You can see it in many countries in Africa. I think actually South Africa, the United States invited them for some military drills, and South Africa was like, no thanks. And then they did some drills with I believe, India, China, and various BRICS nations. So, I mean, you know, countries have a choice now, and that's a big, big deal. Before they didn't have a choice. Now they have a choice. Before it was, you know, the US is the only game in town. But now they can actually go elsewhere. I read that Iran is signing the final agreements to join the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperative Agreement. So they're actually they're actually getting ready to join that. Let's see, I read that, God, I forgot the countries, but I believe India and, do I want to say, no, not India, China and Brazil. China and Brazil are going to do deals, clearing deals with wands, with the Chinese currency. So they're also de-dollarizing. That's from Zero Hedge. China, Brazil signed deal on yuan clearing arrangement. Countries have a choice now. It's huge. It's a huge development. Boy, did Biden really mess up with Project Ukraine. I mean, he messed up in a big, big way. Anyway, let's do some clown worlds. And the first clown world is real quick, and it comes from the NYT. I'm just going to show you a post that they published the other day. If I can find it here. There we go. The New York Times. Biden's a great president. He should not run again. He's a great president, but he should not run again. You know, that's how great he is. That is how great he is. He's so great that we don't deserve another 4 more years. That's how great he is. So that was an interesting cover from the New York Times. What did Burrell say? By banning Russian media sites, we're protecting speech. Up is down, left is right, black is white. Oh, man. And we have we could do 2 clown worlds. And one of them is actually a kind of upsetting clown world, to be quite honest. I'll save that one for last. Actually, these last 2 are pretty upsetting clown worlds, to be honest. The Church of England is they're kicking around the idea of a gender-neutral God, is according to the Telegraph. Gender-neutral God considered by the Church of England. Oh boy, this is not going to end well for England. This is not going to end well at all. Very, very dangerous moves by the church. Very dangerous moves. I'm not even going to comment on that one, to be quite honest. And the final clown world, which is a sad and upsetting clown world, is the de-Russification of Ukraine. And a lot of emphasis is placed on Russia's goal of denazification. But for the past 8-9 years, we've seen a de-Russification take place in Ukraine. Political parties have been banned. The Russian language was banned in 2014, 15, whenever it was back then. They banned the Russian language. They've been banning the Russian culture, banning Russian media, banning opposition parties, Russian TV, all of it, and books, Russian books. And Ukraine is kind of proud of this. The collective West is proud of the banning of Russian language books. Ukraine purges libraries of Russian language books, according to an official. Ukraine has removed millions of copies of Russian language books from its private libraries. Yevgenia Kravchuk, a senior member of the country's parliament, the Verkhova Rada, said on Monday. She stated that the Culture Ministry had provided recommendations on what titles should be taken off the shelves. This comes amid an initiative declared by the Ukrainian government to overcome the consequences of Russification, which in practice means purging schools of certain literature, renaming streets, and dismantling monuments to Russian historical figures. According to Kravchuk, the deputy chair of the Committee on Humanitarian and Information Policy, that's an Orwellian title, a book banner, and her title is the Deputy Chair of Humanitarian and Information Policy. 19 million copies of books had been removed as of November, including 11 million in Russian. Some Ukrainian language books from the Soviet times are being removed as well, Kravchuk said. The MP noted that there was not enough literature available in the Ukrainian language. So the banning of books, the Russification, the de-Russification of Ukraine. 11 million books. Is that what she said? 11 million Russian books. 19 million in total. That's another 8 million books from the Soviet era. So you have to erase your history, erase your language, just erase it. What did I say at the beginning of this conflict? I said that as this conflict drags on and on, the collective West is becoming Ukraine, and Ukraine is becoming the collective West. This has become a postmodernist experiment, Project Ukraine. Erase it all. Erase it all. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. I made it all the way to the main square here. I'm going to sign out. theduran.locals.com. We are also on Rockfin, and go to the Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY. Take care.